ran into this video by Telltale Atheist the other day. He's a solid geezer most of the time, ex-Joe-Ho, but he tends to say some things about the kind of earlier era of YouTube skepticism and atheism that I think are pretty wrong, and he probably learned secondhand. And the perpetuation of falsehoods, well...
Now, this really pisses me off to no end.
So, here, I'll let him speak for himself, but then...
There are a few problems with the atheist movement, with the atheism movement, and this dates back all the way to like 2014, 15, and 2016. The atheist movement on YouTube, specifically in 2013 and 14, wasn't that bad. It was okay at the time. In fact, that's roughly when I came into YouTube atheism, like watching it, not participating in it. But as time went on, 2014 and 2015, that's when, for some reason, YouTube atheists started going down this bizarre fucking rabbit hole of like anti-SJWism or whatever. It started going down like a hard right conservative kind of pipeline.
Right, I think part of the problem here is that Telltale is conflating atheism and skepticism, when they're not necessarily the same thing, though they do overlap quite a bit. So, this is something I've brought up previously. The divide that occurred within the atheist community essentially took place between the people who were atheist for what you could broadly call ideological or political reasons. Like, they oppose the Republicans in the States, they support abortion, and the main threat to that kind of stuff comes from Christianized politics. Right? It's just an example, one example of many. So their roots within the atheist community were not rooted in skepticism, but within political expediency. And they saw humanism and atheism and skepticism as a means to attack their political enemies. And they were right, because these kind of faith-held positions on abortion and other issues, you know, they are vulnerable to skepticism. So, but there were those political atheists, and then there were the skeptical atheists, who were rooted very much in skepticism, that all claims should be examined, that they should be torn apart looking for fallacies, that everything should be tested and observed and questioned and prodded and poked. So I would separate skeptical atheism from political atheism. So what happened? The skeptical atheists were skeptics, and they began to apply their skepticism to some of the political beliefs of the non-skeptical political atheists. And that's where the trouble started, because while they were perfectly happy for the faith positions and weird ideas of right-wing Christian nuts to be examined skeptically, to be torn apart, torn down, examined for all their fallacies and issues, they did not appreciate it when their cherished beliefs were attacked in the same way, or at least not even attacked, examined in the same way. The political atheists had their own positions of secular faith, which we can still see going on today. To pick one example out of a hat, the denial of biological sex as something that exists. Not gender, not presentation, not what you feel yourself to be, but biological sex. That came up fairly early, and to a skeptic, I would say, to anyone actually rooted in science, without an ideological bent, that is obviously nonsense, and indeed the whole tragedy of being trans is that your biological sex and your gender identification mismatch. That's the whole point. If you deny the existence of biological sex, then you're also denying the existence and the troubles of trans people. This is just one example. I could have picked many. I probably picked the worst one in terms of controversy and so on. But questioning that assertion is not denying the existence of trans people. It's not denying the personal reality of their travails or anything else. but questioning it was treated as if you were some kind of far-right lunatic, and led to a lot of people being cut off from the rest of their own community, and led to a lot of people questioning a lot of their assumptions. Like, okay, if these insane people are calling me a Nazi merely for questioning their position, are they also wrong about other people that they are insulting and slandering in a similar way? So all those kind of claims became subject to skepticism, and there were a lot of people being tarred with various brushes that they didn't deserve, and there were also a lot of people being tarred with brushes that they did deserve. But in this environment, a lot of people who probably shouldn't have got the benefit of the doubt as a reaction to the wildly insane ramblings, claims and accusations of political atheism as opposed to skeptical atheism. So that's where we got our divide, and that's where the fighting started, and that's where everyone started blocking each other and not talking to each other, and so things divided into two echo chambers. Skepticism is not right-wing. Skepticism is not left-wing, though reality does have a left-wing bias, fortunately for those of us who still adhere to old-school left-wing principles. But to characterize it as right-wing is wrong. Or at least it was at the start. Now, due to the siloing, the segregation of the two camps, certain elements within skeptical atheism have begun to mirror the political atheism of the other side. They've become just as bad in a lot of ways, but this wasn't the case at the start, and it could have been nipped in the bud if the political atheists hadn't been such a huge bunch of cunts. Zang.
Remember what I told you.
Don't be a cunt.